There was some apprehension. There certainly was. We had no idea how good Derek Smith and Peter Zeza were going to be. We didn't know if Rick Tocchet was going to play at this time. There was a lot of holes in our hockey club.
By February 1985, many of the holes had been filled, and this team, with a new general manager, an unknown coach, and a collection of kids, was to everyone's surprise pushing Washington for the division lead. On March 5th, needing desperately to halt a 3-game losing streak, the Philadelphia Flyers traveled to Long Island. As shown on television, a win against their old nemesis was vital for the confidence of this young team.
Circles out one way, looks left, gets it on house stick, and he'll come to center ice, chased by LaFontaine. Through off the body of Propp into the zone. Poulin right out in front, he scores! Davey Poulin scores at 2:18 of overtime!
It was an important goal because with so many young kids who were intimidated perhaps by walking into Nassau Coliseum, well, they finally won the game and realized they could win the big one there.
And then we swept Washington in that home-and-home series. I think that's when we all realized that we got a pretty good hockey club here.
A pretty good hockey club it was, as the Flyers finished the regular season winning 16 of their last 17 games. On March 28th, the hottest team in hockey defeated the Detroit Red Wings and was rewarded with a 5-minute standing ovation upon clinching the club's 8th division title in their brief 18-year history. The youngest team in professional sports, the Philadelphia Flyers, was a team performing beyond all expectations. New coach Mike Keenan took a team with 10 players under the age of 22 and won more games and scored more points than any team in the National Hockey League. In front of the best goaltender in hockey, Pelle Lindbergh, Keenan and the Flyers showered the Spectrum with a new club record for victories on their way to the Patrick Division title. Despite their remarkable accomplishments during the regular season, the bitter taste of recent playoff failures was rekindled by the press. The Rangers, the previous year's spoilers, were the first opponent. The Flyer faithful were anything but skeptics.
Let's go, Flyers! Tonight is revenge. Tonight is revenge.
Get out the broom. We're going to sweep.
Oh, Flyers, of course.
Can't get a ticket to this one.
It was anyone's guess how these brash young men would react to playoff pressure. The Rangers came to the Spectrum disguised as patsies. They were 0-7 against the Flyers in the regular season. But from the drop of the puck, the playoff Rangers appeared. Despite the New Yorkers' best efforts, the Flyers' defense, ranked second during the regular season, forced Ranger mistakes.
Hit somebody!
Continuing the proud heritage of the Sutter name in the NHL, Ron made a very big play. Poulin to Propp to McCrimmon, and it was 2-0 Flyers. Philadelphia scored again, but the Rangers scored twice, then tied it on a fluke goal that had jinx written all over it. After 54-goal scorer Tim Kerr put the Flyers up 4-3. The Rangers scored with only 26 seconds left. And ghosts from April's past seemed to fill the Spectrum. This young team showed its overtime character, outshooting New York 9-1. Lindsey Carson screened goalie Hanlon and Ron Sutter came out of the pack to feed Mark Howe for a shot that would end 3 years of playoff frustration. And the Flyers suddenly had a new theme song.
It's fantastic to get a win under our belt. It's going to help the confidence of this hockey team a great deal. Now nobody can say anything. Now we're on the positive side. We're on the plus side. Now we've got a plus streak going, you know. Now let's talk about that streak. That's what I say.
Maybe it's better there was a close one tonight. You know, everybody kind of grew up in the third period and in overtime there. And it's fortunate for us that we won.
The bloodline of the game's hero was obvious. Thoroughbred. Philadelphia swept the Rangers in 3 as Tim Kerr ignited the Flyers with an NHL record 4 goals in 1 period in Game 3. Next, the division finals and the 4-time Stanley Cup champion New York Islanders.
Yeah, we do. Flyers line up.
Some Flyer fans were outspoken about their team.
The coaching, the rookies are fantastic. It's a great team.
Some were less vocal.
In the bag.
The Flyers were riding a wave of emotion as they faced what some believed was still an empire. Darth Vader was there. But the Flyers had the Force.
Will the Empire strike out or will it strike back?
Rick Tocchet seemed unimpressed by the presence of his boyhood idols. 19-year-old Peter Zezel proved he could play with the big boys, smothering Brent Sutter time after time. Just turned 20, Derek Smith went toe-to-toe with veteran Islander defensemen. All-star Mark Howe had Pat LaFontaine swimming on ice. Brian Propp fed Tocchet, who shot for the left corner. It was Rick's first playoff goal ever. Defensive rock of Gibraltar, Brad Marsh, frisked Mike Bossy, turning him inside out and empty. Lindbergh was looking as lonely as the Maytag repairman behind near-perfect defensive play. Philadelphia's number 10 defenseman Brad McCrimmon led the Flyers during the regular season with a plus 52 rating. It was still a close game when Propp's breakaway gave Tim Kerr a good chance from close in. That goal made it 2-0. The Islanders tried to make their point a different way, but the Flyers weren't buying. When New York brought out their heavy artillery, Dave Brown settled things down and waited for another turn. The physical game continued until someone very big and very strong told New York's Paul Boutilier to behave. Pelly had a shutout going and just wanted to play hockey. Ron Sutter, one of the league's top defensive forwards, was masterful in blanketing Brian Trottier. And when Tocchet stole a Dennis Potvin pass, Ron was there to capitalize on the opportunity. It was a 3-0 shutout, and Flyer GM Bob Clark attributed this rebirth to Keith Allen.
He and my predecessor, Bob McCammon, they were the two people that were in charge of this operation. When we draft guys like Tocchet and Zezel and Derek Smith, and when we got Timmy Kerr and Brian Propp and all these guys, so certainly they're the major people, particularly Keith, who was responsible for getting this hockey team.
Keith, after all, presided over the Flyers and set many of the philosophies that we still live by today. He's taught Bobby Clarke many of those things. After all, it was under Keith Allen that we drafted Bobby Clarke and many of the other players that made the organization great.
The Flyers won Game 2 at home and split on the island, bringing a 3-1 lead back to the Spectrum. A win this night would give them the series. This game would be a showcase for Flyers MVP Pelle Lindbergh. The Islanders were desperate and the speed of play accelerated. Peter Zezel dropped a pass for Doug Crossman and was tripped by Boudelier over goalie Kelly Rudy, leaving an empty net for Ilkka Sinisello. It was to be the game's only goal, and for Pelle, another shutout. And for now, the Empire was dead. A team predicted to go nowhere killed a giant and moved a major step closer to hockey's holy grail.
That's a tremendous feat for a very young club. When you play a heavyweight, you have to knock them out. There's no decisions.
Every time you try to give a reason why, it sounds like you're giving an excuse, and there are no excuses. I mean, you get your opportunities, you got to put them away.
Mike never wants us to give up, never. If someone's playing bad, he'll have a good talk with them and say, you know, we got to get you going or whatever, and he'll give us confidence at that, and I think that's what makes a team.
The name Mike Keenan had become front-page hockey news.
I think he's a great motivator. I think he demands a lot from his players, and I think they show their respect for him by their performance. What he demands, they give him. And I think he's very interested in the players as people, and that comes across to the players, and I think that, again, that's another reason why they like and respect him.
The Nordiques shocked the powerful Montreal Canadiens to move up to the Wales Conference Championship Series against the surprising Flyers. Only one of Keenan's kids, Brian Propp, had ever been this far in the playoffs before. Philadelphia won one of the first two games in Quebec and came home for Game 3. The Nordiques, often known for their stylish skating and playmaking, decided to play a different kind of game. 6'1", 200-pound Joe Patterson was asked to fill in for injured top scorer Tim Kerr. He did so, leading the Flyers in scoring against Quebec. Flyers fans had seen enough. So had Rick Tocchet. Ed Hospodar was instructed to stay cool. Mike Keenan's philosophy being not to retaliate, but to take advantage of Nordique penalties. Quebec lived by the sword and died by it in Game 3, as the Flyers scored 3 power play goals to win it 4-2. Despite a great effort by number 26, Brian Propp, the defense and Pelle had a rare off night, and Quebec won Game 4, evening the series at 2 games apiece. It was the most disheartening defeat of the season, as Ashby Trophy winner Brad McCrimmon was lost for the remainder of the playoffs with a severely separated shoulder. La Belle Provence looked anything but beautiful to the Flyers as they faced the critical 5th game without their outstanding defenseman McCrimmon and leading scorer Kerr. Captain Dave Poulin was hampered by injured ribs, Pelly was magnificent, but the Flyers found themselves 2 men short in the second period. Quebec carried the 1-0 lead into the final period. It was here that the importance of the Craven-Patterson trade was best illustrated, as first, Patterson tied it, and then Brian Propp assisted Murray Craven on the biggest play of his young career.
Brian, the goal scorer that he is, they felt, I think, that he was more of a threat to score, and he took the puck wide, and both defensemen went over and challenged him, and all he did was slid it right over to me, and I picked the puck up, and we've been, all week we've been saying, you got to shoot high on Gosselin, you got to shoot high.
The 2-1 win continued the Flyers' extraordinary playoff achievements. It brought them home for Game 6 and the chance to give their Philadelphia fans one more victory and a berth in the coveted Stanley Cup Finals. Charting line changes and opponents' tendencies is the job of one of the unsung heroes in the Flyer coaching family, assistant coach E.J. McGuire. This night, he tipped off Coach Keenan to Quebec's weaknesses. Captain Dave Poulin was courageously playing with 3 cracked ribs. When Rick Tocchet deflected in a Mark Howe shot, it looked like the beginning of the end in Game 6 for Quebec. But with the score still 1-0 and the Flyers 2 men short, the prospect of a Game 7 in Quebec suddenly loomed very real. Number 20 will never forget the frantic seconds that followed.
Flyers, Stastny right on to the left side to Marois. Back to Stastny. Short-handed breakaway by Dave Poulin. He's going right on in. Shoot! Goal!
It was the first 2-man short-handed goal in Flyer playoff history, and it broke Quebec. Doug Crossman's power play goal in the final period finished off Lindbergh's 3rd playoff shutout. Philly fans took the time to say goodbye to Quebec as the Flyers advanced to the highest level of NHL competition for the 5th time in the last 12 years. The Prince of Wales trophy rightfully belonged to the Philadelphia Flyers. Pelly hugged injured Brad McCrimmon, who had been voted the team's best defenseman during the season and who was now lost for the finals. The Flyers had reached the summit of professional hockey, the Stanley Cup Finals. Ron Sutter would defend against the game's greatest player, the Edmonton Oilers' Wayne Gretzky.
Well, I expect that I play against him, all 3 times this year. I think when you play against other team's best player, it is a challenge. It should bring the best out in you, and I think that does for me, and it makes me play better.
Hockey's ultimate series was about to begin.
This crowd here is wired. They're really starting it now, and you can just sense playoff atmosphere as Flyers coming out of their room. They should be hitting the ice, and I won't have to tell you when.
Stirring sounds of Kate Smith and God Bless America were reborn in a new young face for another exciting Flyers Stanley Cup Finals.
16-year-old Rene Veneziale.
The defending champion Edmonton Oilers came to the Spectrum having lost but 2 playoff games in 1985. Stars with glittering credentials filled their lineup. The Great One crossed the blue line but had no one to pass to. Mike Keenan's plan was to cut off the passing lanes, making the rink smaller for the freewheeling Oilers. Rick Tocchet smothered Jari Kurri. Derek Smith shut down Krzyzewski. And Peter Zezel took care of Napier. Young men living out their dream to play with the best in the Stanley Cup Finals. Ron Sutter handled Gretzky and had time to force a power play. The Flyers' forechecking caused Edmonton mistakes and a Flyer 2-man advantage. Ilkka Sinisalo, the team's 3rd leading goal scorer during the season, finally connected. The goal was a jolting reminder to Edmonton that they hadn't beaten the Flyers in their last 8 tries. Miro Dvorak and Thomas Eriksson filled in for Brad McCrimmon, and Lindbergh again was on fire. When Murray Craven forced a Paul Coffey mistake, Ron Sutter displayed a stunning piece of offense. Millions watched on Canadian and American television as a no-name coach and his young protégés shut down the champions. Thanks to Pat Croce, the Flyers' physical conditioning coach, Tim Kerr's injured knee was strong enough to keep him in another critical playoff game. Flyers owner Ed Snyder had to like what he saw as his young team went on to win Game 1, 4-1. Edmonton showed their championship caliber as they came back to win a close one in Game 2. And now, the patched-up Flyers offense had to run on a bigger, faster track in Edmonton. Facing the most productive offense in NHL history, the Flyers lost Game 3 and 4 by close margins. Hockey's greatest player, Wayne Gretzky, caught fire and was simply too much for the young Flyers. In Game 5, Bob Froese valiantly filled in for injured Pelle Lindbergh, but Paul Coffey and the revved-up Oilers raced to a 7-1 lead. Still, the Flyers refused to quit. They set one last goal to win the final period. Inspired by Rich Sutter, they showed their character once again, outscoring Edmonton 2-1. The Oilers retained the cup, but the youthful Flyers' proud achievements could not be diminished. The National Hockey League's award ceremony provided the Flyers with a fitting end to their brilliant season. The NHL's Coach of the Year award was no surprise.
Mike Keenan.
I'd particularly like to thank Bob Clarke for his courage in hiring me and giving me an opportunity to coach the National Hockey League, the organization for their great support, and for our players for a certain level of excellence that they strive for all year. But I'd also like to share this award tonight with our coaching staff, E.J. McGuire, Ted Sater, Pat Croce, and Bernie Parent.
There wasn't a dry eye in the place when Pelle Lindbergh's boyhood idol, Bernie Parent, presented the Vezina Trophy to the best goaltender.
And the winner is Pelle Lindbergh.
First of all, I want to thank my teammates. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. But the man I really want to thank tonight is the guy standing to the left of me, Bernie Parent. He told me everything I know about to play about hockey in America. Thank you, Bernie.
It was a magnificent blend of youth, experience, and hard work that enabled this team to rise beyond all expectations to the brink of the Stanley Cup. the lessons learned may help them to drink from it in the years to come.
Fly high and proud, and if you should fall, remember